We have listened to a lot of your podcasts. We've been following your work for a while now. Absolutely love your stuff. But one thing I have not come across is your story of how you got to this work. So maybe you can give us the highs and lows of how you came to doing this work around masculine and feminine energies.
Well, it's a beautiful question, and it's difficult to describe it because obviously every single experience I had in my life led me to where I am today. But what had the most significant impact was when I just turned 15 years old, my father died of colon cancer in my arms. And next to that, I suffered from an autoimmune disease called neurodermitis, which meant during the night, I always scratched my skin open. So I would always wake up with open wounds. And when he died, it became worse. And this pain, this immense suffering, and basically I can really share what really happened is after he died, I was going through so much suffering. And what I did after high school, I came home, I opened sad music, and I did breath work for hours at the age of 15, 16, reading spiritual literature, practicing yoga and pranayama. And I would just do breath work for hours and just cry, have these deep traumatic emotional releases, really. And this is not exaggerating anything here, but I would cry on the floor for an hour without being able to move. And even though this sounds very intense, it was very intense. But in hindsight, I'm so grateful because it was during these moments of immense lows where I cried on the floor and didn't know what to do with my life, where my inner teacher started to awaken. It's almost like I like to say it in this way: suffering cracks our heart open. So my suffering cracked me open. And it's very difficult to describe what happened then, but suddenly I started to have these epiphanies in my meditation practice. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and journal things about the feminine. And it made no sense to me at all. But after some time, I just surrendered, and people out of the blue started asking for coaching, even though I didn't offer it. After a couple of sessions, a man's life, at the beginning I only coached men, was completely changed. And I didn't understand it myself. I didn't know what I was doing. But every time I had a coaching session, every time I wrote something, it was like a higher consciousness took care of me and just did that for me. And I was just there okay, what the fuck is going on with my life? Literally changing so incredibly. And I know this might sound abstract, but there is no better way I can explain this as of now, at least.
So it was about tapping into feeling sense. And that just is something that opened some sort of intuitive channel that allowed you to work. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. And as you know, I was so into your post about listening to the oracle of an awakened woman as the fastest way to reach higher states of consciousness. And you also have a podcast episode titled, If She Doesn't Challenge You, Leave Her, I believe is the title.
Yeah.
We would love for you to share this perspective with our listeners and exactly what all of that means.
The best way I can put this is the oracle of a woman or of the feminine is the embodiment of the intelligence of the universe. The intelligence of the universe is feminine. Therefore, a feminine being can embody and connect to that much deeper in most cases. This is not dogmatic, black and white, only women and men are like this. Not at all. Women have that access too. But this oracle is what has been suppressed for so many years and what has been misunderstood. We over glorify the success of men, and most people have no idea most people have no idea how powerful a woman's intuition is. And when a woman has reached a certain level of consciousness, then what happens, and this is what I mentioned before, is she starts to embody the intelligence of the universe. And this is what makes no sense to the logical mind. This makes no sense to the ego. It transcends everything. And this oracle is what initiated me into sacred manhood. This oracle is what taught me my blind spots. And that is why I honor in my work the feminine so deeply, because it was the feminine who initiated me into who I am today.
I love that. You also say that feminine testing is highly spiritual and necessary for a man's evolution, and that a man can never truly become the king he's meant to be if he hasn't gone through intense fierce testing of the awakened feminine. And I'm curious for the men listening if they're like feeling excited about that or if they're just like cringing in their seats. But I wanted to discuss the difference between healthy feminine testing and toxic testing. I think that's super beneficial for women and men to know. And also, I wanted to point out that like we women question ourselves why we're testing you so much. But deep down, when it is the healthy feminine testing, it is coming from love. And it is, like you said, we're just wanting to call forth like that deeper awakened consciousness, that deeper king within. But at least in my case, I have guilt around that because I feel like it's almost like you feel like you're trying to change your partner, or you're putting too much pressure on, or there's always something. You can't just, relax and let them be, but it's when you are deeply intuitive and you are deeply connected to that nature that you speak of, it's almost like you can't just sit quiet when you know that there's more to step into.
Yeah, and the reason why a woman, or why the feminine tests so much, is because at the deepest level, the feminine cannot settle for anything but the freest and most enlightened version of a man. So it's almost like we could say on a mind level, a woman might say, okay, I'm going to stop testing now. Why do I constantly want to test my man? Jesus fucking Christ, this is too much, But at a deeper level, and it's exactly what you said, the more awakened a woman becomes, the more she expresses the intelligence of the universe. And when the universe wants to fucking test, then it just tests. And the feminine is the embodiment. And it's literally impossible. You can't just become a more conscious woman, at the same time stop testing so much. You will test more. And the funny thing is, before I go into the difference between healthy and toxic testing, is the testing always adapts to a man's level of consciousness and freedom, which means I call it easy testing and complex testing. So I'm going to give a practical example that is, otherwise it's so much theory and abstract. An easy example of an easy test would be, you say that you're going to get ginger for dinner. I don't know. I just made that up. And then you don't get it. And you realize she's in a kind of pissed off, irritated mood. And this would be an easy test. And you would simply say to her, for instance, something such as, hey, baby, I'm feeling you. I didn't keep my word, I know, and I wasn't in integrity. Boom. Not some pleasing, I'm so sorry, baby. I bowed to you. No, but I wasn't in integrity. I just didn't get it. I forgot about it. That would be an easy test. But a complex test would be, for instance, you have deep-rooted abandonment issues. And at a certain point in the relationship, when it gets very secure, she will start in the most mysterious ways, in the most complex ways, which make no sense to you. She will start to pick on these blind spots. And a lot of men, and this is what you mentioned before, a lot of men can't deal with that. They'll be like, what the fuck is your problem? Why am I constantly feeling this fear? She's basically throwing you back at your own shadow constantly. And this is, again, not because she doesn't like you or she wants to change you. This is because she deeply loves you. She cares so much about you that she's willing to test you in the most complex, most mysterious ways. And it just requires so much opening of the heart, so much understanding, okay, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my habituations, I'm not my shadow. It just requires, every time you pass a woman's testing, you have to transcend your current level of consciousness. And that's why it's so hard sometimes. But at the same time, it sharpens a man. It forges him. Her fire is the testing that forges him into a spiritual warrior. And now the difference between toxic and healthy testing, it seems like a thin line, but it isn't a thin line. It's a big difference. Toxic testing would be something like, I don't feel good because you didn't hold the space properly. I'm feeling like shit because you don't make me feel safe. This could be one example, or just projecting something. But healthy testing, as you said, is always coming from a state of love. which means even if the man would fail the tests, it wouldn't end in a disaster, in drama and in fighting. It would still be rooted in love. So the difference is always it comes from love, and it also there is an understanding that how much he has to go through in order to pass the testing. So it's not I'm gonna fucking test you and you just have to work right now. That's projecting, that's really hard, but there is always an empathetic, deeply compassionate approach. And to wrap up my answer, I like the image. I have the image of while she's testing you, she can be very fierce. And you might look at her and be like, okay, whoa, she's so fierce. What is going on? But deep down, her soul is whispering, rise, warrior, rise. And you have to hear, rise, warrior, rise. And when you rise, then what happens then is just magical, because she opens so much further to you. At the same time, you get more initiated and more rooted in your masculine depth and consciousness.
I love that. I think I pictured too, like whether it's coming from your inner child throwing a tantrum or your wise woman that's just asking for a level up, maybe too when it comes to the toxic and the healthy. What were you going to say, Mercedes?
I was just the first thing that came up, I wanted to kind of go over some of those points again, because I know this is such an esoteric conversation, and it's especially if some of our listeners, our listeners are about 50% male, 50% female, so they're going to be both looking at this from the two different perspectives, which is why it's beautiful we're all in here together. But if I'm listening through the ears of a man, if much as I can being a woman, but hearing that women are going to test me over and over,
sounds exhausting.
It sounds exhausting, and it sounds the opposite of freedom, right? An opposite of like unburdening.
And worry, like I would imagine as a man, you're like, well, I don't want to give her that power over me.
That's an interesting, conversation too. And where that comes from is a toxic cycle, right? A toxic storyline. So do you want to touch on that before we address any of this, Lorin? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I can resonate, and I'm going to be as vulnerable as I can. And I had that thought, and I still have it sometimes. I'm like, oh my fucking God, why does she need to test me all the time? But at the same time, when I level up, when I get initiated, I'm like, all right, I want to be tested more. So it has to be a healthy balance. It's not constantly being in the process and constantly being tested. So when a male client comes to me and says, I'm constantly being tested, I'm like, maybe that's not healthy testing. You know what I mean? There needs to be a healthy balance of, I'm testing you, you are passing the tests, you're getting initiated into a higher state, I'm opening more up. And then you're both enjoying and celebrating that moment without any tension constantly.
Yeah. So there's an ebb and flow between the work and the relaxation.
Definitely.
I'm curious though, around the toxic testing, I know that an example would be like threatening the relationship probably.
Oh, yeah.
However, I see how that can get a little gray, because there is the difference of like every time he forgets the ginger, you're like, that's it, I'm done, but when you've been asking for something for, 8-9 months, and you're asking for a certain type of growth or a certain type of shift to happen, and you have to now say, if this does not change, this is no longer a safe and healing container for either of us. So I think also that gets a little blurry there too.
I totally agree. And I mean, there is a big difference between when you are in a little disagreement and suddenly it's like, if you keep showing up like this, we got to break up. Or what you just mentioned, which is this man is continuously not showing up. And this is not threatening the relationship. This is being honest. This is being authentic. And this is being real. Because if you realize this is not safe, then this is your truth. And it would be a huge disservice if you wouldn't express that. So I love what you just mentioned, and I completely agree.
And do you feel that the woman is sorry, Marty, I keep...
No, I'm good.
Do you feel like the woman, this is the situation, this is the scenario, whether the man is further along in his growth path, whether he's behind her in the growth path, or whether they're equal? Do you feel like it's always this is the case, or do you feel like sometimes it may be the opposite, or how do you feel about that?
It can definitely be the opposite, but in most of the people I work with, in what I see, at least in my subjective bubble, most of the time it's the woman who grows and evolves in consciousness. And it's the man who is realizing, oh, fuck, wait a second, I need to grow too. But of course, that can vary. And again, none of these teachings, none of these things are dogmatic. None of this is black and white.
Mhm.
Oh, a woman has to be feminine, a man has to be masculine. This is not about, this is so dangerous that people easily use these teachings and put people into a box.
Right.
Okay, this is this. I have so many feminine traits, but still my core is deeply masculine, but I have deeply feminine traits. I mean, and that coexists. That doesn't mean I am 50-50 or something like that. So I hope that answers your question.
I think that sometimes women can feel frustrated and men feel frustrated in this dynamic because it can feel like the women really desire a man that leads. But I think if we can accept that sometimes that truly deep down, because of our intuitive state, we are so much the leader in the relationship when it comes to growth. And then if we can let go of that like desire to be led, then we may feel, I don't know how to articulate this, but we may feel like more ease in our role. And then he feels that ease, and then he's more accepting of the entire situation. And then he's able to kind of step more into that role that we're asking him to. I feel like I'm not articulating correctly.
No, I'm totally getting what you're saying, and it's very deep. I mean, you always hear in this realm of masculine feminine dynamics, the masculine is the energetic leader, or at least I have used as the energetic leader, because it depends. I see it's of course a difference between physical realm and energetic realm. But still, what you're saying is very deep. And this is also where these teachings get a little bit blurry. Because the truth is, yeah, the masculine leads, right? But so often it's the oracle of the feminine that initiates growth, that sees what's the next step. So again, these things are not black and white, but what's really important is that the masculine leads in certain scenarios. While she might lead to the growth in a certain way for oracle, for instance, in the bedroom, that's a place where the masculine can lead a lot. And it's quite tricky to put this into practical terms right now, but let's use the example of which restaurant you're going. So leading in these areas, okay, we're going to go there for vacation. I'm going to take care of that baby. Okay, we're going to go to this restaurant. I'm going to call the Uber. You don't have to do these things. The masculine is the master of space and time and structure. So you provide structure, you provide that leadership wherever you can. But of course, if her oracle and she's so in tune with it, then it would be stupid to say, I'm going to lead, because you would lead into disaster ultimately. Does that answer it to some degree?
Yeah.
I think it does. I think figuring out, first of all, making it non-binary, making it less divisive. If we're really talking about unity here, which is unifying these two energies, masculine and feminine, and allowing them to live together, that's kind of the core goal in this conversation. If we're trying to, our human mind, our very binary mind is trying to delineate between, well, what role do I play in this scenario? And what role does he play in this scenario? And that gets us into that divisive place where it's more like, an ebb and flow, or it's about energetic agility, or as like London Angel Winters and Justin Patrick Pierce talk about, being able to play the alpha and omega when needed and step into those different roles as it's called for in relationship, instead of getting so rigid, I gotta play this role. If you're trying to fit a rigid role as a feminine being, you're not playing the feminine at all, right? Because you haven't relaxed and you're rigid. I mean, just the word itself. So
can't stand that word.
I know, except in the bedroom.
No, I don't like it there either. I don't like it anywhere. I had this on I don't remember what medicine I was on, but it was at a plant medicine ceremony. I had this visual of two of my best friends. They're a married couple, Kyle Kingsbury and Natasha Kingsbury. He is such a medicine man, such an amazing coach, amazing podcast host, leader of Fit for Service. He is a healer for sure, and always doing medicine ceremonies and very much in the growth path. She is at home breastfeeding, taking care of the kids, holding down the house. But because she's not showing up to those things, you would think more of Kyle as the medicine man, right? But in the visual that I had, it was like she was actually the medicine. And even though he's the one showing up to those things and the one pouring out, none of that would be possible without her, because she's the one holding it all together, truly, like at home. And he would not have that grounding and that feminine strength, that leadership from her, that kind of sometimes has to pull him down from the astral plane, And so none of it would work without her. So I saw too how even when the men seem like they are so much in the work and so much on the growth path, that it's still the women who are like the power, and it wasn't like this way of like, Kyle's useless, it's all Natasha, but it was just seeing the beauty of the power of the feminine, no matter the role.
I literally said to my woman a week ago, I said, maybe I'm the one on stage. Maybe I am the one which people see as a teacher or as a coach or as a leader. But the truth is, I couldn't pour or share any of that without the medicine that she gives me. And this is what I briefly mentioned before. We over glorify the success of men because it's often men who are showing up as the leader, and we don't realize that the woman next to them at their sides is giving them this immense wisdom and strength and helping them. And I can say with full embodied conviction in my body, without my woman, I wouldn't be able to put these teachings into words, because it is through her where I get to embody these teachings.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying.
But at the same time, at the end of that visual, I was like, this is why women are so tired. We do so much work.
Yeah. And this work is often not seen. It's like, I mean, maybe some people wouldn't agree with me, but if you are a man and you're a little bit conscious, you're like a special fucking snowflake in this society. Oh my God, he meditates. Oh my God, he's doing this he's breathing his sexual energy up, and he's not a slave to his sexual energy. But I don't hear something like, oh my God, she is radiating such softness. She's literally cracking every man's heart open when she enters a room. I don't hear stuff like that.
Yeah. And even if there is the like, oh, she's breathing that sexual consciousness up, there's like I don't know, like
She's
it's so like sexy when a man does it, but when a woman does it, it's like, that should be kept in the bedroom, like type of feeling.
I just laughed, but it's not funny actually.
Well, it is laughable because it's so obvious, especially I think to us sitting here now. But you're 100% right. I'm over here. People listening to this can't see me nodding my head ferociously, but I do think that we have this weird, paradigm in our society right now that doesn't. I want to call it credit or praise females for being female, which I think we are doing. We are doing the work of changing that narrative, hopefully. But I was going to ask you on that point. And by the way, like anyone listening, please let that resonate all the way through you. And next time you see a woman really in her femininity, or even a man who's also diving into his feminine energy, praise them for that energy, because that is what this planet is lacking right now. It's what we're trying to come to balance with.
Yeah, because I think if a man is not doing it, just to say something real quick right there, if a man's not doing that, if he's not able to listen to his own intuition and drop into his own heart, there's no way he can listen to his woman.
For sure.
Because he's not able to meet himself there. So it is important that I feel like some men who are very in their heads and not in their hearts, those are the ones who may struggle with hearing their woman.
Yeah, they can't soften enough to her as well, to open to her.
Yeah, but what were you going to say?
Lorin, I was going to ask you about the opposite of that, just not to, I guess this is what women do. We go in and be empathetic and compassionate about, but how are you handling this situation as a man? Which is funny that comes up now, but that's important. I mean, this is the energy we need to be supporting in the world, guys. So this is experiential right now happening for me. I wanted to know, as a man who is awakening and is exploring this dynamic between the energies and can praise a woman for being feminine, like this instance we're giving right now, do you get praised especially from women, I'm assuming, for this ability and a skill? Is there an adverse when it comes to certain groups of men who are still in that really, call it toxic masculinity, even though we don't love that term here? You know what I'm saying?
Or wounded masculine.
Yeah, wounded masculine. Is there backlash from that group for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say I'm very protected. I'm very guided. Whatever my inner teacher or my guides are doing, they're really keeping me out of struggle, and I'm deeply grateful for that. But of course, especially I say a lot of provocative stuff. It's just who I am. I love to say, it's just who I am. And some people don't like that. And for instance, people who don't like that are these kind of red pill guys. And because for them, and that's interesting, they often at the beginning, when they don't know me, they call me like a softie or someone who is like, this is just a feminist. You know what I mean? He's just saying, oh, women are bow to the goddess and so weak. But interestingly, when they see me, when they connect more with me, they're like, wait a second. And I even had men who told me I was in this whole red pill stuff, but through you, I realized, wait a second, there's a much deeper and more profound approach to this. And I will say this again and again. As much honoring I am of the feminine, as much as I appreciate the feminine, I am also fierce. This doesn't mean that I'm a pleaser then, because that's a big problem in today's society, but it's one of the biggest struggles for men is that they're either too much in their heart or too much in their cock. And those who are too much in their hearts are often what we refer to feminized men. And I had that experience, my father dying early and being this feminized man. And it really needs this balance between connecting to your primal raw energy, because the truth is you cannot lead only from this heart. Sometimes what's required is fuck it. I'm just going to do this. I got it. I'm going to take care of that kind of energy. Or let's say you are walking down the street with your woman and a guy touches her butt. It's a really intense example, but you can't say, oh, hello universe. Thank you for this teacher. I love you so much. Like, honestly, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like I will abandon my spiritual virtues when that happens. I already know that. I will get really, really in an energy of like, okay, I got to hold myself now. So, not to say that I will beat him. Of course, that would be the other extreme. But what's required is a really fierce energy. And worst case scenario, pushing that guy against the wall and telling him, back off right now.
This is a boundary, right? Which creates.
This is a boundary.
Yeah, the boundary thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Lorin, but
No worries.
Just want to iterate. Stay on that point for a second, because this has been coming up in my life a lot recently. The boundary piece is where I think when we settle into this feminine energy, that's what creates stepping into victimhood, which is where we don't want to end up, right? So we become softer, is what we're talking about here, if we're in this feminine energy. And what happens there is sometimes there is no boundary, because it's very fluid, it's flowing, it's soft. And without boundary, then victimhood starts. So the boundary is the thing where, as a female embodied person, how do I want to say that? You know what I'm saying? I have to remember that I have to basically, be agile enough to also step into my masculine where I need to set up boundaries and hold boundaries for myself, discern where the boundaries are necessary and reasonable and all those things. And if we can do that, like you're talking about when you're walking on the street, you got to set a boundary with this dude. He can't just be jumping on your chick. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be there to say something, and for her, in order for her to feel safe around you as well. I mean, that's an important part of just relationship with your woman, not just with yourself. Did you have more to add?
Sorry to interrupt you here, but what comes here is the warrior archetype. And even though this might sound cringe to a lot of people, I'm old school. I love everything around the warrior archetype.
We do too.
Even though the lover is quite strong as well. But here is the thing. If like 10 guys are running at you, then you get your woman safe and you die for her. Worst case scenario. But it's what every man has to know in his heart. He has to be willing to die for his woman. And I know there is such an intensity in that. And people might be like, hey, wait a second. But this is exactly this kind of warrior archetype. And this is also the places which we often label as not spiritual. Oh, warriorship, that's not spiritual. Oh, dying for your woman, wow, that's really strange. Of course, it's an exaggeration. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But still, this we need to go and touch these places as well in order to set proper boundaries. And we're still here on a human realm in a human body. And we can be as spiritual and as full of love as we can be. But yeah, we can transcend our biology to some degree, for sure. And I know that. but we're still animals in that sense. And honoring that, celebrating that, harnessing that, accessing that connects us more, grounds us also more with Mother Nature, instead of being this high, vibrant, flying in the air kind of spiritual snowflake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what this work is all about, and what you have been doing such an eloquent job of relaying to the world. So thank you for your work, for your efforts here. Not to praise you further as a man doing this work, but I still think that's important. I mean, it's important to still give you praise where it is really due. I was going to move us on because this is a good time to go into what it means when a man stops growing. But before we do that, I do want to kind of backtrack on all we've come through thus far, just because, again, a lot of our listeners I know are new to this. I wanted to touch on the fact that you just mentioned the warrior archetype, and that this is related to Jungian archetypes: king, warrior, magician, lover. That's a beautiful book. There's a book titled that, actually, if you want to look into that at all and get deeper into that work. But to take us back to where you were discussing how a man can see his woman as an oracle, and to know when feminine testing is toxic or not. I just wanted to kind of touch on a few points that to me were really worth reiterating to some degree, because again, I know this is a topic that's not easy to grasp. Like, Jade and I have been studying this stuff for years, and it's still coming, and experiential is a lot of how you have to learn this stuff. But discerning the difference between when I, as a woman, am projecting onto my partner or challenging him through my own truth and love to grow, that's a challenge for me. And that's important, I think, for women listening to understand, is that the only way you get to be discerning enough to know that you're consciously choosing to challenge men, even though I'm saying consciously, but it really happens kind of just happenstance, the opportunity comes up, and as a female, you jump on the opportunity, you don't really think about it. It is part of our nature. However, you'll know that those times when you do challenge your man are coming from a truthful and loving place, when you have done your own work. And that means you have dug through your own traumas and done the ugly, work of unbearing a lot of things, looking at them, becoming aware of them, and then changing the storyline that you might have been living that had been toxic in you for a long time. So I know that is, again, esoteric. There's so many places you can look into that work deeper, but that's I don't want to give permission to women around the world to just start projecting onto their men, because, well, that's a test. I heard on the podcast, so this is me testing you. Are you going to show up for it? If you are doing your work actively, and you can say that you are meeting yourself in a lot of ways, you're loving yourself, you're doing this work for yourself, then when you go and meet your man in a situation where you decide to challenge him, it is likely coming from that positive place. And also, when you do the work, it causes you to be introspective enough to know that when you send a challenge out there, you go, wait, was that a projection, or was that a true challenge? And if it's a projection, then you can say, hey, sorry, if you have any guilt around it, it's probably a projection. But guess what? You get to go and apologize for it, and then take it back. Like, hey, that wasn't for you. That was actually shit I need to deal with.
But even then, you saying that shows that you're doing the work as you're asking.
Right.
So you are looking within, you are doing the work. And like, I know for me, when I'm asking for something from the masculine, and it's coming from a place of desire, because I want this in my king, I want this in my, relationship, I often feel like, well, is this because I'm not cultivating this in myself? Is this something I should be, am I seeking outside myself? And so I think I love that you said that. And I think it shows, if you're the point that you're pointing it out, or the fact that you're pointing it out and like bringing it up, shows that it is something that you do, but sometimes that can come from a guilty place too. Like,
absolutely. And then you have to re-examine that. So that's beautiful you bring that up, because that's the second part of what I wanted to add on to Lorin's point earlier, is that as women, as we are testing our men or challenging our men, we figure out that piece about, are we projecting, or is this a true and loving challenge? And is this me trying to fill is this me asking a man to fill a God-sized hole? And that's a big piece of this, because when I asked that question about, like, well, as a man, I would feel like this is just testing and testing and testing. It's exhausting. Like, whenever do I become free of this burden? There's that piece in a female that I feel like I am yearning forever. And until I had a teacher tell me, like, you're going to yearn and long for something forever, because when you are in the feminine energy, you are essentially
it's longing,
the void, you know, you are this chaotic black hole, you know. So in a sense, you always need, you feel like you need something to fill you, but that is the you know, there's a line where it's another human being can come and meet you at a certain point, and then the rest of that is God or yourself, you know, that you need to meet yourself here. And so are you asking your partner to fill a God-sized hole, which is unreasonable? So if the answer to that is ever yes, then you need to reconsider how much of this can you actually ask him to meet you on. And then how much of it do you need to meet yourself on? Or, you know, and you can use yourself or God or however you want to use that term. But it's something that only you can facilitate, essentially. Your communion with the divine, your communion with God, your communion with yourself can only facilitate filling that other part of your yearning or longing.
And I mean, I'm going to say something provocative here, but also in the kind of goddess movement, there is so much spiritual bypassing, both in men and women. It's not that one is more, it's the same. So when it comes to spiritual bypassing, it's the same. It's 50-50, women and men. And it's like, I see that, like, I'm such a goddess, I'm testing and all of that. At the same time, struggling with immense avoidance and also unconsciously, subconsciously manipulating men. And every man is not woke enough. You know, this kind of mindset. Where are all the fucking conscious men? Well, guess what? If you do the work, if you are ready, he will show up or they will show up. It's not necessarily prone to monogamous relationships, even though I experienced that. It's not everyone's reality and it's not black and white, but it's really this, okay, if you are saying, where are all the conscious men? I'm doing all the work, but all the men I meet, they're just so emotionally unavailable, then it means you're missing something. And as harsh as it sounds, but the universe is it's quite simple. It's not, but it's basically, it's like, okay, if you're ready, you get it. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me on this, guys, but when I was ready for something, it came. It was never like, oh, I'm ready. Oh, where is it now? Weird, it's not there. And so and I'm talking about the awakened feminine. I'm talking about the rise of the feminine, but that doesn't mean that there is not a lot of spiritual bypassing going on. That also means, by the way, that some women will misinterpret my message to the world. They will use it. And I think this is what you were touching upon before. They will use this in order to project everything on their man. And there are many women who stay in a relationship all the time and say, my man is so bad, he's not showing up. Why the fuck are you in this relationship then? Oh yeah, but no, he doesn't need to. You should get out of this relationship if you're constantly complaining. So yeah, spiritual bypassing is one of the most, I love talking about it because I've been such a bypasser and I know how it feels like. So I'm not saying this from a disconnected or these fucking bypassers. I'm saying this from an empathetic approach as well. Because I mean, I was the guy, meditate in the morning and then go on a date and be this idiotic fuckboy, kind of what you call it. It's like, wait a second, meditate and do all the spiritual work and then treat women like shit. Something is off here.
Yeah, that spiritual bypassing piece is big. I think it's not even about, you're right, it's not about harping on, I don't know, I want to say this, it's not even about harping on, are you doing it right or wrong? Because then you're back in the conversation of grasping, you know, you're grasping. It's like, do it wrong. Like, just do it wrong. And you'll see quickly, you know, the universe, or you will be corrected. And, you know, you will quickly be aligned, much more quickly than I think people even realize. We get nudged back on to the alignment if we even just if we become vulnerable enough to take the chance and say, I'm going to go out there and attempt to be the goddess, and I'm going to do it wrong. I'm going to fuck up. And then I'm going to get, you know, nudged back like, oh, that didn't work right. Okay, well, let me figure out what I did wrong here. And that's going to realign you so quickly. So I guess I'm only saying that because spiritual bypassing is for sure. It's happening in all of us. I definitely do it still.
Me too.
We have to do it, though, in order to know where we're doing it. I mean, like, that's just part of the process, right? So not to shame anyone who's in that situation now or has done that or finds themselves, you know, meditating in the morning and then going on a date and treating someone like shit, whatever. Like, just use your example. But you had to do that in order to figure out that wasn't feeling right for you. You had to do it. So anyway, take that leap, try it, and then it'll be corrected quickly and easily. I don't know about easily, but it'll be corrected quickly, I bet. And that piece about grasping, I think that's where you can really notice whether or not you are in alignment, is when you feel, because that's for me. Like for me, I know I'm not in alignment when I'm just like pushing the boulder uphill and like grasping and I'm like, no, I'm going to make it happen, and I get way too rigid, to use the word Jade loves, instead of trusting in the process and letting go a little. That's for me, my challenge, might be the opposite for someone else, where they need to be pushing a little more. They need to be a little more rigid. So I don't know if that helps anybody listening, hopefully, but this whole thing does come down, like you're talking about, Lorin. It's simple because it's physics and it's energy, and it just is, but it's also the most complex thing to grasp as well, that if you level up your energy by doing your own work, by getting into your feeling sense, looking at your traumas and stuff and working through where you've been an asshole, maybe that's my thing, your energy is now vibrating at a frequency, this is physics here, vibrating at a frequency that allows other things to attract to you in that same frequency. So yes, it just will attract. That's how you'll know that you're in the right place, because the things are attracting. And then if you feel yourself, well, I don't feel in the right place, like, let me grasp for this and that, that's not it either. Like, relax, trust the process. So there's all these mechanisms that I'm still learning them. They take time to learn. Be kind to yourself out there. We're warriors, maybe too much. Sometimes we have to sit back into the lover and just let it happen. All right, I'm going to move us on. We've been on this for a little bit because we could talk about that just all day, I'm sure. I want to ask you though, I've heard you talk about how when a man stops growing, all is lost, right? That's the title of one of your podcasts. So let's just start there. I know you have so much you can say about this. So let's see what comes up there, if you don't mind.
The masculine in its deepest essence is about service. And when a man is not in service, it means he's not growing, because being in service to his own heart, to the universe, and to the feminine requires action. It requires doing something with your life, taking steps and trying things out, working on something. And it's very crucial that a man I use this metaphor of going into the battlefield. It's like, let's go into war, but not the kind of let's go into war and kill people. Hopefully not. It's not what I'm preaching, but on an energetic level. The heart warrior, or the warrior of the heart, or the awakened, enlightened warrior is like, okay, I'm here. I want to get financially independent. I want to make sure to provide for my woman and me. Doesn't need to be, but let's say in this scenario, what do I have to do? What brings me closer to that? And then going into battle, going into war, and literally giving everything, that at the end of the day, no matter what results you have achieved, you're like, fuck, whoa, that was really intense. And of course, I like what you said before, you gotta be gentle, you gotta be forgiving. I've pushed myself beyond all limits, and I noticed, okay, I can't continue like this because it's too much. But still, for most men who are not connected to their deepest purpose, for instance, for me, I gotta be more gentle. I know my purpose, I know what I have to do, but I push. I get into this rigid state, really one of the typical traps of the masculine, this rigid kind of tensed up state. But for most men, it's really important that they are on the battlefield and not chilling on the couch. Not, you can masturbate, no problem. But you should do it when you have no shoulds, I know, but I would advise people to masturbate when they've been on the battlefield. Then you can self-pleasure yourself, do it in a conscious way. And of course, I can share more about it, but it's not the topic right now. But you gotta be in service, because your service is what creates your self-esteem. And the thing is, meet a man who is in service. He's always confident. He, of course, has his shit to go through and his shadows to work on. But every man who is in service has a certain level of confidence, assertiveness, direction, leadership, and presence. It's just like that. And those who don't have it are often the distracted man, the leaf that blows in the wind, just like I was, like, oh, I'm gonna read this book, do this, watch this YouTube video, now masturbate. It's like, oh, come on, just prioritize and get closer to your fucking deepest dreams, what's calling you, what's creating anxiety in your body. Like anxiety, like, oh my fucking God, if I were there in this moment, I would probably shit my pants. That's your dream. That's what you have to be in the battlefield. And it requires everything. Going in the battlefield is not like rigid fight, fight, fight. It's also surrender, but it's all serving this higher cause. So when a man is not doing that, all is lost because there is no growth. And a woman can never feel safe and is able to open and surrender and trust the lead of a man who is in that energetic state. I was there, but fierceness is needed when you're in this state, not a kind of softy approach. Hey, sweetie boy, please stop watching Netflix and just start doing something. It's like, hey, get your fucking shit together.
Yeah.
From a man, that's the most powerful. Like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Are you kidding me? You're wasting
Absolutely.
your potential. Not in a shameful way, but in a way of you're wasting your potential. I can feel your heart. I can feel your gifts. But what the fuck are you doing here? Use them. So it's not a shameful way. It's an empowering way, but a fierce way.
And this really can't come, this really hits home for me. This is, I have an overdeveloped masculine energy. So I attract men with a underdeveloped masculine energy, overdeveloped feminine energy, of course. So for me to figure out how to become, more in my feminine and more agile with setting back when I need to, and not being the rigid masculine energy that wants to tell my husband, for instance, who is in more his feminine, who, we both are working on these things, but I can see where you need to get up and go and whatever. And that doesn't come from your partner very well. So what do you recommend men do to kind of, if they're in this situation where I think a lot of men are, where they are not necessarily, they haven't shed their unhealthy or wounded masculine, or they haven't stepped fully into the masculine or the awakened masculine. What are the modes? What are the modalities that they can use to step deeper into this?
I like what you mentioned before. When a woman says to a man, you need to grow, because, for instance, in this kind of projecting way, you gotta grow, you gotta do something with your life. Most men won't be able to take this. Right. We don't want to hear that from our woman. Depends, of course, on the situation. Depends on the situation. Sometimes it might be necessary. But what the most powerful way, or the one that works for most people, is to reach out to a male and masculine mentor. And that doesn't always need to be the case. You could have a feminine spiritual teacher and she could initiate you there as well and help you with that. It's not black and white. But for instance, I experience this all the time, and this is no exaggeration. A man comes to me, has already filed divorce, he has a son, and is just total havoc in his relationship. And after 2 sessions, they're thinking about marrying again, they're living together again, having amazing sex, and it's just everything has changed. And I see this guy in the first session like at his absolute edge and limit. And after 2 sessions, that's not the case anymore. But that's not because I'm so special. That's not because I am so special and I have changed that man's life. No, but it's because I have given him a masculine reflection. And literally, I will use the exact words my male clients say so often to me. I always knew that there was more out there. I always knew that I could live my mission of what I was capable of. But I needed to hear this from you. Yes. I needed to see you. I needed to see how you hold the space. I needed to feel and see that you're real, that you're living this. And once men realize, wait a second, this person is living it, or living it to a certain degree. I'm not perfect or anything like that, but at least embodying it to some degree. When I saw one of my male teachers, I was like, okay, his name is Zat Baraka. I was like, wow. And I believe his teachings were not the main thing that helped me to up level. The main thing was just seeing him. How is he holding himself? How is he coaching others? How is he speaking to others? And then I was like, oh, wait a second, that's possible for me as well. And just that thought, oh, that's possible for me. Oh, someone is living that. It's like, whoa. And that's for your nervous system. Let's talk about, this word comes up right now. For your nervous system, it's like, oh, whoa, that's a reality. That's real. And then you can practice.
Yeah, it's tangible. It's
exactly.
tangible, and you're in the energy space, so you felt it because you're witnessing it.
Yeah.
Do you think that that also is the case because sometimes the women are in the men's blind spots, or
I'm not sure what you mean exactly.
Me neither. Could you elaborate on this?
like they maybe, well, you help men develop, like you help men notice their blind spots, but do you think that maybe a woman can be a man's blind spot?
Well,
And so they can't hear from her, they have to hear it from someone else?
no, not necessarily. If you have reached a certain level of consciousness, you can hold yourself so strongly that you don't have to be, okay, a man needs to tell me this. I'm not taking anything from my woman. I can take things from my woman without ending up feeling like a pleaser or weak. I can take it, but still be in leadership. I can take it, still hold the space. Well, not always. I've collapsed many, many times before I was able to harness that. But when my woman tells me something, for instance, I mean, we were in Brazil just recently spending Christmas there. And obviously we were together all the time, like in really all the time in each other's space. And it was fantastic. But one time, I don't know exactly what it was anymore. She was going for, she had a struggle, but it was a real struggle, not an internal struggle, but it was something with flying restrictions, COVID, you know, all of that. And I said to her, hey, babe, I'm going to help you. Let's get this sorted out. But I ended up checking something for myself. And that was really, I mean, okay, you know, I really said to her, baby, I'm going to take care of this, you know, this kind of masculine decisiveness. Let's get this. The biggest priority right now is that we sort this out. And then everything afterwards. She was like, yeah, thank you so much. Let's do this. But then I got lost and distracted and did something else, which is messing up. I messed up badly there. And she was, of course, furious with me, but not in a way of, you bastards, but still in a loving way, because she's so far, so awakened. But still, of course, she was furious with me because that's what I deserved in that moment. I needed that reflection. But she literally said to me, Lorin, warning, danger, danger. You need to evolve beyond that. That's selfish. That's your ego. And you can say nothing that will prove otherwise. You cannot talk yourself. I love communication, so I always try to talk myself out of things, but I was just quiet. I was like, okay. And that hit deeply. I was like, and I really had to hold myself to not collapse, to be like, okay, just chill, just chill, just chill. That hit deeply. And it's important to be able to take something like that, because if you can't take that and you got to hear this from a man, then the relationship won't last. So again, it's a thin line. But if you come from, this is the same thing with the testing. If you come from a loving energy and say, hey, babe, I'm feeling this and it's really difficult and I don't feel so safe, but I love you so much. But if you come from a state of, read this fucking book right now, or I leave you, of course, that's not feeling safe. But still, most men listen deeper to a masculine mentor.
Yeah.
But the work I'm doing and what I'm seeing in the future is that changes, because that's still limited, isn't it? It's limited. Yeah, I gotta hear this from a man, baby. Wait a second, I just gotta talk to a man. No, just listen to it right now. So yes, it's beneficial, but it shouldn't be necessary. Shouldn't be necessary. Always, at least.
So getting a mentor, a coach, I think these are beautiful places for men to start. Joining a men's group, having some sort of brotherhood, you know, that helps you initiate you into the manhood that maybe our culture, whoever you are, wherever you're listening from, does not allow. I shouldn't say it doesn't allow, it allows it. We just don't have that process set into place for us already. So we have to create that type of initiation. Women, we have periods, we have a kind of some initiation processes already built into us. Men don't really have that. Do you have any recommendations of how to create your own initiation process or brotherhood? You know, you're certain, maybe it's a very small tribe of mentors or books that really heal you or whatever it is. Do you have a process? Doing that?
Especially right now, while they are everywhere, it may feel a bit overwhelming on who to choose.
Mentors,
coaches.
Joining a men's group is really powerful, but still, the first thing I'd say is forget having a lot of friends at your side. At least that's my approach. I rather have one or two brothers at my side, which I know they will go to war with me, even if I fuck up and mess up entirely. They would still pick my sides. Find these kind of people, because just the ability to have a friend with whom you can speak about everything, share your heart, hug, cry. That's so beautiful. And most men don't experience that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
getting a mentor is one thing. Getting a mentor is more for your spiritual evolution and growth. A lot of men then see the mentor as like a friend and brother as well, and it can get blurry. I, of course, have strong boundaries and I'm in my integrity. I make sure that something like that doesn't happen, that a man sees me as, okay, let's become best friends now. But it can easily happen if you are not an experienced coach, if you are not an experienced mentor, or if you don't have certain skills, right? It can easily get blurry. Hey, brother, how was the sex last night? You know what I mean? Let's just back down and be in integrity. So it's the mixture between getting a mentor if you really want to up level, finding your blind spots, but also finding this just one person or two or three with whom you can really speak and just go really deep. That's so healing to a man. And of course, if you want to join a brotherhood that really resembles also your virtues, be mindful of that. Because I mean, if you find a brotherhood which has a similar path that's yours, that's beautiful. But if you go into something like Red Pill and it's like, oh, women are only gold diggers, they only want your money, that's also dangerous. So there is not one answer to this, but the most important thing I'd say is find these one or two people which stay with you and which will go into war with you no matter what.
Yeah.
And out of that energy, you will be able to make proper decisions. Do I want a mentor? Okay, do I want more brotherhood and all of that?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I think men listening to this will take so much away from it. I hope they do. Oh, all right, Jade, I think let's move on to our next.
Well, I was
topic.
curious how before we move off of two things I wanted to touch base. First, I wanted you to talk about conscious masturbation, I think you called it, what exactly that is, because I've never heard that term. And then not that I call masturbation unconscious or anything, but I wanted you to go deeper there. And then I was also curious how men can help discover their blind spots. Those are my two sub questions.
So this is really, this goes in a lot of depth. I mean, I could talk hours about this, but I will try to make this as concise and as powerful as possible. I would call myself someone in the field of sacred sexuality. Let's say that, because my book is in the charts of sacred, so people accept the word sacred sexuality. So let's say I'm in the field of sacred sexuality. And a lot of people could you excuse me for a second? I just lost track. You said about the blind conscious masturbation, exactly. A lot of people in the sacred sexuality, let's say fields, there is so much information, like the multi-orgasmic man, Taoist Tantra, no fap, go celibate, do this, masturbate once per week. And I'm going to say something provocative again here. Most of these people don't have a transmission of the full depth. Am I saying I know it perfectly? No. But you have to have more understanding than just being able to have energetic orgasms. I mean, I'm sorry right here to just diss a lot of people in this field, but if you think you're a master of tantra or sexuality just because you're able to move energy up your spine, you're a fool, because it goes so much deeper. Everyone can master energetic orgasms at some point if they practice, but it goes way, 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 way deeper. So I'd say no fap isn't the answer. Taoist Tantra isn't the answer. None of them. It's a balance, and it's also different for each individual. So for some people, might be really almost never ejaculating, holding their semen and masturbating still and making love, but not ejaculating, using that energy, breathing it upwards, and doing this almost all of the time. Just very rarely ejaculating. That might be for some people. For other people, it might be, and yes, I'm going to say this, there is this often in the field, there is this idea, never ejaculate. If you ejaculate as a man, you're weak and you're depleting yourself, which is not true. Again, it's about context, it's about your depth, and it's about how much you understand your own sexual energy, how deep you have actually mastered your own energetic orgasms, and how deep you've been initiated into sacred sexuality. So there's so many approaches, but I would say every man should masturbate, because if you don't masturbate, then you might get attached to your woman, to having sex all the time, and you don't see her for a week, and you can't take care of your own sexual pleasure, and you're like, oh baby, I need to fuck. It's like, it doesn't feel really safe, it's like you come grounded, relaxed, and then it comes, but you're not coming in with that energy. I experienced this for me in the past, and clients in the past also. It's this kind of energy. Okay, I'm seeing my woman tonight, we gotta make love, but that puts so much tension and stress. You got to let go completely of that. You shouldn't even think about it, because the less you think about it, the more you take care of your own sexual pleasure, take responsibility, and not make it dependent upon her, the more it will happen, the more she will invite you sexually. And of course, I could talk endlessly about how conscious masturbation works, how it works to breathe that energy upwards. But what I will say to it is, the way you masturbate or the way you make love reveals your level of consciousness. So if you masturbate totally cramped, rigid, it just shows that you are probably avoiding something, right? You're not doing this in a conscious way. And so I would say, really learn to masturbate. How would a king masturbate?
Right.
How would a king masturbate?
I love it.
He wouldn't just be rigid and cramped and have a weird expression in his face. He would do it with maybe burning some sage, opening some gentle music, and really making this a sacred ritual.
Yeah, I hear so much in there. I want to use the word intimacy, because it's about being intimate with yourself. And I think so many men, especially, are afraid of intimacy with themselves. And therefore, how are they going to ever be intimate with their woman, which is probably what she wants more than anything else, right?
Yeah, and you hear pleasure practice, you automatically think it's a feminine thing. You never think of a man having a pleasure practice, So I do love that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And the other thing was, you asked me about blind spots. There is the most powerful way I know of. I don't think it will change, but who knows? The whole universe is change. It's all about the body. So if I talk to a man and I realize he's going up his mind, I'm like, wait a second, you're not in your body right now. What's going on? Blind spot identified. Boom. It's like this, not the exact blind spot, obviously, and the root of it, but it's all about being in your body. So I don't know how that exactly works, but I can just feel when a man in front of me is not in his body. Of course, I feel it also when I'm not in my body, and there are times when I go out of my body. But the moment you go out of your body, that's a blind spot. I would put it as simple as that, and that's practical. I'm not in my body. Wait, what's going on? Am I avoiding something? Am I numbing something? So whenever you're in your body, it will be very difficult to come across a blind spot of yours.
Yeah, our couples therapist asks us to slow down a lot and kind of feel. It's about feeling. And again, that's the intimacy with self is lack. When you're not being intimate with yourself, you're not feeling what's happening inside of you. And he often asks us to, close your eyes, slow down, and notice what you're feeling. And then just the easiest way, if you find yourself in a blind spot or in a place of you're outside of your body, to slow down, stop, feel the actual feelings. Like I feel warmth in my stomach. It's churning. It's, my heart feels heavy. I don't know, whatever feelings my shoulders feel heavy, and tap in it. Boom, you're back in your body immediately. And then go from that place,
Yeah.
Well, what comes up to me, I hope it's all right if I become so specific also in this
Please,
podcast.
I'd love it.
For instance, what a lot of men experience is when they're in bed with an awakened woman, it's that they start to feel an immense intensity of emotion, because she's radiating that softness, that vulnerability. She's so secure and sensual in her body, so intimate. I like what you said, so intimate with herself, and so at home in her own intimacy. And you're like, wait a fucking second, and all these emotions start to wash over you. And this is a pivotal moment. When the emotions wash over you, you're not weak. It's totally normal. But here's the thing. What happens to most men? When they get into bed with an awakened woman, they start to lose their masculine energetic core. Why? Because the softness washes over them. And now they're feeling soft, obviously, and they stay there. But she first softens you, and then she wants you to fucking penetrate her properly, and to bring that cock energy, conscious, compassionate, but fierce cock warrior kind of king energy into the bedroom. And this is always the same process. Well, not always, but mostly. It's soft, it's radiant, it's exploring one another. And at some point, it's like you get into the zone and then you can harness that energy. And that's very difficult. And that's what you said also before. I love that before anyone should practice some energetic orgasm practice, they should practice feeling, because the more you can feel, the better lover you are. The more you can feel, the more you can hold space. The more you can feel and allow and witness in your body, the more safe a woman will feel, because you're holding this strong energetic space. No matter what she's throwing at you, no matter how powerful, how much and she wants to express herself. How many women play small in the bedroom? Don't express their fiercest parts, because they know the man will shut down and be like,
Right.
oh baby, it's not my script, it's not what, oh my god, I'm so tensed and my cock is like this now. Of course, I'm joking here. This is not meant in a shaming way,
But it's true,
like, yeah, baby,
It's a
give me
story.
your fierceness, give me everything, scream, moan, give me fucking everything, let me hold everything. I love it. Make it as intense as possible. And when you are in this mindset is bullshit, in this embodiment, in this energy, then it's like it's heaven. Because the most powerful woman who sets fierce boundaries, no one can get close to her. No one can see her most naked, most deepest vulnerable parts. But there you are, and she's trusting your lead. She's surrendering. And that gives you a strength and confidence and power. It's just magical. It's like, oh, fuck, I love it. Yeah, as you can see about this topic.
No, it's very juicy stuff. Like this is it. It's just getting to that is we have a long road sometimes of us, I love it though. Thank you for elaborating too, because it's important to feel your experience come through, your energy when you talk about this stuff. And that's something so beautiful, especially about listening to your show, is that you can feel energetically you are in this work and relaying it through your voice. And I think to me, that's like, obviously here we are, we have a podcast trying to do the same thing. So we get it. We love it. It's absolutely amazing. You're in your calling, bro. Not that you needed that validation.
You are.
That and means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about how a strong woman reflects a man's spiritual life back to him, but you've said that we respond to their energy, just like here in this example, right? But that we aren't fully in our power. We women aren't fully in our power if they aren't a safe spiritual container, is like a perfect example of what you're just speaking of in the bedroom. And sometimes this feels like a smooth dance, and sometimes it's a very frustrating process. But how, for the men who are desiring this, how can they be more of a safe spiritual container?
Beautiful question.
In the bedroom and in the relationship in general.
There are many, many things I could say, but the most important one is embodiment. And one of the things that's currently happening is that a lot of men understand intellectually masculine feminine dynamics.
That's so true.
Intellectual understanding. When she tests me, I'm the masculine structure, time, space, blah, blah. And I was there too. And understanding something intellectually is the first step. It's nice. It's cool. You can have a good conversation. But when it comes to action, when it comes to the actual moment, what's required is more than intellectual understanding. What's required is embodiment of the intellectual understanding. Now, am I saying you have to be fully embodied Shiva, totally enlightened, not have a single worry, negative thought anymore, and you're totally free? Yes, exactly. No, of course not. No, I mean, beautiful if you are. I'm not. There's also my goal, obviously. I want to get there, but it's a journey, as we know, and that's beautiful. But yeah,
integrity.
It's embodiment and integrity. I love. Thank you for helping me out here. Embodiment. Actually, I love that. Yeah, I didn't think about integrity right now. I love that. Thank you. Embodiment always comes with integrity. It's authentic. It's real. You can feel it. And that's the thing about the reflection, that a woman is always a reflection of your state of consciousness. So when I was just understanding these things intellectually, my girlfriend at that time or intimate partners were showing me that I was full of shit. Obviously, it was like, I was like, yeah, I'm holding a space, presence, shoulders back, strong warrior, breath deep, but shitting my pants at the same time. And they
like
were
a
like,
to-do list instead of in the heart.
exactly. But it wasn't coming from the depth, it wasn't an embodiment. And again, I talk very intensely, but it's a journey and I have empathy for it. You gotta fuck up. You gotta try at the beginning with a script, right? Or it's most likely going to be like a script. You have to practice, 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 practice. An awakened woman will understand. She will feel that you are maybe not embodying it, but she will feel that you are practicing. And the fact that you are practicing and showing up as powerful as you can will make her feel safe. No perfection needed. No perfect Shiva-like warrior needed. And yeah, that's basically it.
And what about on the woman's side? How can a woman encourage this in men, especially if she has grown tired of not having it and she's maybe a bit, to the point where she doesn't, I don't know how to articulate that, but
no, I get it.
Yeah.
Two things. First thing is show him through your innocent and vulnerable feminine the impact it has on your heart that he's not showing up fully. Like show him. Don't tell him you're not showing up fully, but show him through your body, maybe even through tears. It's not about faking tears, obviously, but still, it's this showing, revealing. Look, I fucking love you. But if you don't show up, my heart contracts. I want it to work. But also, if this happens again and again and again and again, it's wiser to let him go. And this is harsh. This is brutal. No one wants to experience this. But in hindsight, he will be grateful because her leaving him will give him a lesson. Not in the sense of I punish you and leave you right now, but in the sense of, all right, this relationship didn't work out. Now, what do I gotta change? And that is mostly where men go on this path. I believe that most of the men who really dig my work have been through heartbreak, have experienced that to some degree where they got shattered, like, oh, fuck, I really messed up. And now it's also important to not go into the victim mindset then. Oh my God, I messed up. The woman of my dreams, and now I'm full of shit and I'm so worthless. I'm just gonna die. No, you gotta own it. Yes, pity yourself to some degree. Yes, forgive yourself and be gentle, but you gotta own it. Okay, I fucked up. And if you really want to save a relationship, that's the only way. It's really coming from a place of, baby, I fucked up. I know I fucked up. This is what I did. This is what I did. This is what I did. There's no excuse. I'm not here to talk myself out of that because I couldn't. You can feel my energy anyway.
Yeah, and I think I have heard a lot that it is the feeling of losing a strong woman or the losing of a strong woman that awakens a man for a lot of men. But I think that for the women, they deep down, they know that. And they're like, I've done all this work and now some other woman is going to benefit. But sometimes it is exactly what the man needs. Not saying that is the only option, but sometimes that is the thing that can really cause that breakthrough.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like that I have that same story that runs through my head, Jade. I don't know if I'll call it a story here, but the same thought anyway. It's scarcity, really, right? Because we're worried now we're going to detach, let go of this person who you feel like you've invested time, energy, and all this into. But that's really,
and in a way, instead of saying like,
there.
It's not fair, I've paved the way for another woman. Instead, you can say, I'm so thankful that I was able to make this.
It was a service you provided here.
Yeah.
I love being a good luck. Yeah.
I love the sarcasm in that. Yeah.
You're welcome, sir. Go on and have a nice life now.
But I mean, it's a harsh ego lesson. It's a harsh ego lesson, definitely. Yeah. It's like, whoa. But also the thing is, it's important for women to understand, is he a project or is he something that's really real about doing the work? Because someone who is real might still have some construction to do or whatever. It's a stupid metaphor, but still. But if it's a project, like, yeah, he shuts me down for 3 years every single day, yeah, that doesn't sound like, it sounds like a project. And a lot of women, there's this subconscious story that's running, like projects, because that means they're not gonna face their own shadows, right?
Yes.
Because the project,
it's so true.
Oh, baby, you never do this. Baby, I show you this. Baby, you're so strong. So in this helping syndrome, and oh God, I gotta change him. But an awakened man would be like, wait a second, what the fuck is this coming from you here? Baby, I love you, but I gotta do my stuff right now. I don't have time to hold your hand all the time. I gotta live my mission. I come back. I love you as much as I love the universe. But still, I'm not here to be a parent for you in this. And that is also part of the awakened masculine, being able to say something like this, like, hey, baby, wait a second. I love you, but my mission is my most important thing. I gotta live my mission. I gotta be in service. And I love you so much. But if I cannot live my mission properly, I have to let you go. And that's very intense, by the way, but that's strong.
But it's needed.
It's very strong. And it's authentic. It's not coming from a place of, oh, you bitch, I can't leave my mission. No.
Right.
It's like, I love you. I truly love you. But in order for this to work in the long run, I need to be able to be in deepest service. This is my path.
Yeah. And my boundary there. I just correlated, as you guys were talking about this, the word project and projection.
Oh my gosh.
That's interesting.
That's
so
good.
Yeah, like when we're projecting, we're creating a project essentially.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me because
that blows my mind.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I was like,